I feel like dance is a beautiful thing. The expression, the intentional and conscious breathing. Like, think about it. You're consciously wanting to breathe. But being black is also a thing. And there are certain structures, certain labels, certain expectations that are just unkind to human body. But we still gotta ask why. And standing still is not an option. We gotta move forward. So my main question is, where are the black bodies dancing?
I use dance to move through life. So this is how my career actually started, by dancing and wanting to perform. And then from there on, it just went all different and separate directions. When I started dancing as in performing really, I was in this demo team, Double Faces. I was 15 years old, but the crew was very mixed, so it wasn't like all white people and one black girl. We were all from different places in the world. And then when my dancing career really started, I never really felt like the racism, It wasn't until I started moving into the established world of dance.
For me, it wasn't always easy to work with choreographers because the narrative you're playing on stage is often, it feels like a black canvas. So you're the black one of the group, but it's not that the narrative is really thought out, crystallized, the existence of a black body in a certain narrative on stage. So that has been very hard at times. Also the fact that you're the only one that's representing, so it's a very lonely experience in that sense. I mean, in a way, I made it work in the sense of, okay, this is reality. I did notice a very big difference the moment when I started creating myself and performing my own work, and I think that's the moment where I realized that you're as visible as you're invisible. Like often you're the only one, and then after shows it happens that people made remarks like, oh, we didn't really see you, or for instance certain people who throughout the years always had a certain way of interacting with you, and then the moment when you decide to be your own choreographer, to decide how your black body is going to be on stage and therefore also in that white space, you see that the reaction is differently.
When I start working with them, so in places where you do experience racism, I tell them very clearly what I don't like, what I expect from them, and there's open communication so we don't rub each other in the wrong way. So I never really experienced racism in that form. And also when it comes to ballroom, the other community that I'm from, we have our own world. So I think I worked really hard to create this safe space for myself and my own world, so I don't have to experience this. But for people who do want to be in these big dance companies, there's only place for one or two, maybe one real black person and one mixed race, That's it. So then the competition is crazy, and then why would you want to be in a place that doesn't want you there?
What I've noticed in the last years is that the interest in diversity started when the funding organizations started to actually require more diverse casts. So there was money to lose, and money is always a good motivator for people to bring change. The only problem is that in these organizations, the majority is white. If we talk about the question of inclusion and also connected to privilege, in that sense, there are people on the other side of the wall. So for them, it's easier to think, okay, if we diversify our cast, then we will get a certain amount of funding. But then it's actually performative diversity, because then it's portrayed like, here is a diverse portrait. If you look at the background or the backstage, often it's a full white production team. And I think therefore, if you really want to make a change in inclusion, it needs to come from within. And I don't think that money is an intrinsic motivation. I think for most of these people in these organizations, and I'm not the first one to say this, there have been a lot of people before me who try to open this conversation, but the key is intersectionality. And creating a diverse cast is not necessarily an intersect way of thinking. So that's very much on the short term, and I think that's why it stays on the surface and why inclusion becomes such a big hassle. I also think with the daily experience of the majority of people in the institutions being white is not the same as trans, queer, or POC black. So even with the best intention, it will always reach till a certain point, and that's why it's important to have a representation of different bodies and different gender, but also sexuality expressions within the organization in order for it to become inclusive. Otherwise, for people who are outside of the organization, they're not going to feel it creates a barrier, and then willingly or unwillingly you start to exclude people, because that layer of identification is very important.
I'm not thinking about like the structure that the oppressors like created. We're breaking it, you know, like there's a lot of like black artists working, just doing their thing, and they're getting noticed, you know, and they're getting attention. So the system is breaking, like, and I think a lot of them are just like running, trying to be, you know, like, oh yeah, they need to be part of it now, you know, or else you're late. Like, it's very interesting. Also, when you look at the television, I'm getting so tired of this, and this is maybe ungrateful, but first there were no black bodies on TV. Now I see only mixed race couples on TV. It's driving me nuts. Like, it's so see-through. Like, what are you doing? There's no balance, you know, like everything. So, but I can't be mad at that, because now finally there's like representation, you know, we can see ourselves on television, like, but it's like over the top. But it's happening, you know, so I don't want to be ungrateful towards that, and I'm sure in a few months they'll find their balance, like, okay, we've put enough black bodies on television now, like, you know, like, but it's happening, and they have no choice also. We're done also, you know, like waiting for them to give us something like, oh, here you have a little. No, I think this generation, we're done.
Institutions are based on Eurocentric value. Eurocentric value is known for the erasure of the black identity, because if colonialism wouldn't have happened, there wouldn't be all these big institutions that are quite hard to crash down or deconstruct. So I do think in that sense that it's a pity that it's more of having to make space for your own brothers and sisters. But I think we also should get to this point that yes, I am a black performer, so I question my position in the industry, but I don't think that I only should create space for black people. I think I also should create space for disabled people, trans people, because the danger is if I'm only gonna look at my own narrative and just take it from the intersect race. If we're talking about space and making inclusion, it would be a bit narrow-minded to only think about my own people. Of course, it would be nice if we would get to this point where I know, like, okay, I'm making space, and actually whomever needs it and who's actually in need of space, that's what I want to, whoever I want to create space for.
I think I use these dance styles, for example, whacking, I use them in my theater performances, you know, like, I include them in, I am that, you know, like being a whacker or whacking, it's a lifestyle, I think, you know, so I embody that, I think. So when I make pieces or whatever, I just implement all these things that are part of me. I just try to put it into the dancers, you know, give it a stage, and there's quite a few of us who are doing that, you know. I think the reason why I'm still working right now and why I'm doing these things is because I am myself, you know, and what you see is what you get. I don't follow a crowd, or I don't try to do what's hot, or like it's just staying true to yourself. This is a good time to dive into yourself, and to get to know yourself, to learn how to set boundaries, to communicate those boundaries so you can be happy no matter how we are oppressed by our governments, that you can create your own space where you can find happiness. So, and I just wish for everyone to be lighter and happier, so.
I believe very much in creating together trees, and then the shadows of the leaf are sometimes for other people to sit on. But I hope that in a couple of years I can look back and be like, okay, so things are really changing for other generations. I just hope that, especially for everyone, but the generations that are coming, that they take the freedom in creating things that they would have loved to see when they were younger. Because that's, for instance, something that really drives me today. The majority of us are in a situation where we have a transcultural identity, which is not always very easy in the way how we're positioned in society, but it does create, I think, for all people and all those who want to express it in a creative way, it does create this second layer, which is a very big richness. And I think it would be a pity to deny that and to feel like you have to do like the generations above you. I hope that they're just gonna make new mistakes.
Yeah.